Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Blizzard Comedy Profiles, the companion show to Blizzard Comedy, where we ask questions to some of our favourite comedians live on stream so we can both pretend we're much more famous and interesting than we actually are. Today, we're joined by one of the funniest white boys I've ever seen, and believe me, I've seen a lot of white boys who tell me they're funny. Daniel McKeon, an immaculate storyteller, master craftsman of anecdotal jokes, and with a delightful innocent cheek to him that is going to make all your slightly too old aunties develop slightly inappropriate attractions to him. Daniel last performed with us the autumn of 2021, I believe, and it absolutely blew the house down. But in case you missed it, or if you have no memory of anything before last Tuesday, here's a short clip of his set with us to let you know what you're dealing with before we start. Also, hello, more3193 in the chat. Hope you're doing well. Right, let me find the video clip. That could have been really smooth if I had it.
Unemployed for a long lockdown was quite hard. I was so unemployed. I don't know if you ever logged onto LinkedIn and your computer just laughs at you, but it was like a new feature. Like, I was so unemployed that the scam emails I would get would be for like patronizingly low amounts of money. You know those emails you get where they're like, "Hey, it's the government here. Would you believe it? You paid too much tax. Click here and claim your £72.86. I'm just like, firstly, I pay tax. That's amazing. How did you know I was willing to give up all cybersecurity for like a new video game and a 4-pack of Cronenberg? Like, insulting. And I don't know who chose me as a mark. Enjoy the minus 400 that's in my account. I just like the job ads in that time of lockdown. Like, they weren't real jobs. It was really crazy. They say things like, the benefits of this position are, we have millennial vibes. The pay is that we break up some bread and throw it at you, you duck. You'll need 4 years experience making your own cryptocurrency, and you'll have to tell us what happened to DB Cooper. By the way, if you can tell us how TikTok works, you're our boss now, so congratulations. I can't entirely blame circumstance for my unemployment. There was one time I sent off a cover letter with the notes and suggestions from other people still attached. I don't know, it's quite hard to explain to someone that you have great attention to detail when the notes are right next to that, saying, hey, you should say that you have great attention to detail. It's all massively right. One time I was in an interview and they said, oh, we've seen your TikToks, which was just absolutely blood-curdling. I don't know. It's been embarrassing enough that you don't like use TikTok, let alone make them, because they're not TikToks about what a hard worker I am. It's like a new, saddest, shortest story. You know the one that's like baby shoes for sale, never worn. We've seen your TikToks.
So here I am with Daniel McKeon. Hope you enjoyed the clip. I just want to apologise as well. I said that was from last autumn, but I just noticed in the video clip Gullivers actually had their Christmas decorations up. So that was probably actually December you did that with us. Or yes. Gullivers had their decorations up out of season. Either are plausible.
Almost audacious, I think, to have Christmas decorations around Halloween, unless you're going for a kind of like Nightmare Before Christmas, like game within a game type situation.
Well, we didn't really decorate for Christmas this year because we had some work going on in the flat and didn't really get around. We couldn't even really like do anything with our flat until that was finished, which finished like 2 days before Christmas. But what we usually do is we just put decorations on top of each other until it gets ridiculous. So we'll have like last year's Halloween, last year's Christmas decorations. Maybe we'll have some Easter decorations. We don't really celebrate Easter, but occasionally we'll just find some like weird, you know, those like just tiny little cotton bud chickens that just appear every. Yeah. We'll just like buy like a 50-pack of them after Easter when they're like 2p and just hide them around the place.
How much textiles does it take to get between holidays? Like, how much does it take to get the Easter bunny to a Halloween figure to Father Christmas to New Year's? Because New Year's, jump from Christmas to New Year's is easy. You just put a new date.
That's easy. Yeah.
But I would say, I mean, then again, getting a bunny to a scary bunny is also fairly easy. If you've seen Watership Down, you just paint some red on the mouth. So it's like, so I'm just wondering, like, how many bits of cotton wool did it take to like jump ahead?
That's how we're starting this stream, with Watership Down references.
Oh yeah. Watership Down and textiles? That's really what I want to know.
It's an interesting thought experiment. If you know in the chat, let us know, and if you're correct, you'll win a prize. You'll win the bags of holiday decorations that we've just been accumulating over the years, putting on top of each other.
I'm slightly just avoiding talking about the clip because I know I've aged about 100 years since then. not even in my. I know I'm still fairly baby-faced, but just the look in my eyes, like the amount of like just sag and tired and like wanting to stay in nurse has hit real hard.
Just like loss of hope.
Just in general, like something. No, but also like vaguely not even post-COVID, but like vaguely. Like it didn't happen when COVID hit. It happened 2 years after that, I guess.
Yeah.
There was still hope and that kind of weird just unpacking of what happened in that whole year.
It was weird because I think during COVID, everything kind of went put on pause. I mean, if you were lucky enough not to be working in healthcare or even retail, if you were lucky enough to be working in a job where like you were either able to work from home or you were just furloughed, everything kind of been put on pause. So I think a lot of the dread, the state of everything, kind of hit afterwards.
Yeah.
We're still feeling like all the like economic impacts and stuff like now, like that we didn't really, that didn't hit as hard at the time, but that we're still kind of getting the echoes of that.
Yeah. Not to be super bleak, but there's like I feel like every headline is just like it's worse here now. Like I saw one a while ago which was like
everything is bad.
Well, it was like apparently like statistically, I mean, I don't know, proportionally chocolate bars have gotten smaller over the past few years.
No, they have,
less cubes on the thing. I can't even have a bit of chocolate. It's like it wasn't. I think the other one was the other one was I think I'm trying to remember. It was like Jeremy Hunt can't upgrade can't up the pension age because of death rates. So it was like death rates are too low. It's just like people life expectancy. Sorry, that's right. Term is the life expectancy was too low to up pension age.
Like,
you can't even that's the only escape.
Yeah, because they're trying to do that, aren't they? They're trying to like stop people retiring early, so that there's enough people to make up for all the work that we lost by leaving the European Union and losing like millions of like workers that were living in this country. We've gone straight into the politics here. We've not even referenced the clip apart from the fact that there were Christmas decorations.
Sorry, I'm jumping straight through that.
No, that's fine. But yeah, no, everything is terrible right now. We can leave it at that.
Yeah.
But what I do want to say about the clip, I really love the bit. So you didn't actually watch that clip with us, and you were saying before we went on the stream that you'd actually forgotten that bit, and were excited for us to play it so that you could reintegrate that into your set.
But it was one of those things. If you had this where I was on stage and I was like, that bit is about being unemployed was relevant, and I wanted to add more to it, but I just couldn't remember the wording. There was like a particular, and it's the wording is everything. So I just got, and I was just sad. I was like, "You ever been unemployed?" And then just kind of dropped it straight away. I just moved on. It's like a weird cry for recruiters.
It's fascinating how just like a little slight change in inflection, or even like a couple of the words can just like change a routine from like being like a smash and for just getting kind of like a little titter. So even if you remember all the content, if you forget exactly how you delivered it, it's hard to bring that back. But that whole routine lives rent free in my head, and literally every time anyone mentions DB Cooper, I go back to that.
Because that DB Cooper reference does about 50-50. I noticed it was a weird. If you like, not alienating, but in my head I was like, everyone's obsessed with DB Cooper. I thought that was like a mainstream thing. I thought that was a mainstream conspiracy, but then it turned out people. I tried to. I think I replaced it with Amelia Earhart for a while. But I was just like, who's the darling of disappeared plane people? I thought that was the one that was the most interesting.
I think particularly on like a rhythmic level as well, DB Cooper just has a nice percussive sound to it that really works in that routine.
You got the B sound, which is classic comedy sounds, just kind of. It
is, and I think like Amelia Earhart was like a little bit more of a kind of, I mean, like obviously they're both like interesting mysteries. I think Amelia Earhart, from what I remember the story, I'm not a conspiracy I don't spend a lot of time wondering about it. No, obviously not. But from what I know about the Amelia Earhart stories, I think it's a little bit more bittersweet. There's a little bit more of a tragedy to it. Whereas DB Cooper is just kind of fascinating. This I think it was this like weird height. Apparently, like on all accounts, he seemed really lovely and polite, and like nobody seemed to actually be hurt by the entire thing. Obviously, we don't know what happened to him. It's very possible he just died immediately. But like, it was just...
He was like the gentleman scammer. Yeah, he was like the platonic ideal of like everyone just wants to do something kind of crazy and then get out. Get out of the rat race.
Exactly.
And then you mentioned Amelia Earhart. Everyone gets a bit... And this has happened before with bits where like I'll accidentally mention something that's actually quite depressing.
Yeah.
And so everyone's like, oh no, what's such a shame. What do you think have you ever tried to really jimmy in a very niche reference?
Oh, all the time. That's like
you.
Yeah, like I will always shit on The Big Bang Theory for just being like no actual jokes, just references. But if I can get away with just referencing something really niche that isn't even relevant anymore into a joke, like I've still got a punchline that it's actually become relevant again because Avatar 2 finally came out. But up until before Avatar 2 was announced and Avatar was an ancient movie, I still had that as a reference in one of my jokes, and I've never even seen the film. I just
yeah, I haven't seen it either actually.
No,
it makes me completely buy it, and apparently you didn't have to as well, which is kind of a fascinating.
Well, that's it. Yeah, like I've seen screenshots, I've seen trailers, and from what I gather, that's basically all you need to see of it. But then I was like, oh, actually, that's a bit of a niche reference. I'll probably try and update it. So what I instead did was change the punchline to Final Fantasy 13, which came out like a week after Avatar. So like I moved the relevance forward by about a week, but also massively narrowed the audience who actually knows what the fuck that is.
What was the bit, or was it just?
I think it's been a while since I did it, but the general kind of deconstructed premise of it was I was talking about how I feel about watching heterosexual pornography.
Right. Okay.
I'm sort of saying, it's kind of like I enjoy it well enough, but I enjoyed it the same way that I enjoyed the movie Avatar, in that I thought it was very pretty, but I didn't give a fuck about the protagonist or something along those lines.
Okay, yeah. Actually, I'm picking up what you're putting down. I think, was that the nichest thing you've done? Was that the niche, or did it go? I want to see just how far down the rabbit hole you've gone for no one's benefit other than your own.
I've probably done niche ones. That's the one that I can think of. The only other bit I can think of is I had another bit where I was talking about just making a bunch of TV shows from my childhood more LGBTQ representative, and I probably had some niche ones in there that I ended up not doing.
Okay. Yeah, I think I tried. My nichest one was, I think, mentioning Lisa Taddeo, the author, in a bit, but it was like. Do you know Lisa Taddeo? I don't want to.
I could not tell you anything. The name rings a bell, but I could not tell you anything about her.
It was literally like there was nothing to gain from it. She wrote Three Women, which was this bestseller like a couple years back, which is about. I'm going to surprise you here. It's about three women, and I referenced it in a bit about Robbie Williams' effect when he came back to take that.
Right.
This is quite intense thing about lots of different things, but it just didn't. I said it and I could feel but first it's one of those things where it's not that anyone wants to get it. It's like no one cares, and also like it's not. Do you find it that funny, or do you just want people to know that you read 2021's prize book winner or whatever? Like, you
just want people to think you're smart, yeah.
I don't even know if it's like that deliberate or like when you just like. It's like Gilmore Girls, isn't it? It's like, you just for no reason include one of the most particular reference points.
Yeah. Well, that's it. If you've got like a specific reference, that is always funny. Like even as like an audience member, if there's a niche reference I don't get, but like the context behind it is clear enough as to what the joke's meant to be, I will still genuinely laugh at that. But then if I had to explain it with someone, if I'm like with someone like, oh, I didn't get that, can you explain it to me? I'll be like, I haven't got a clue. But it's just...
yeah, I feel like that's the sign of a good bit is when it's so. I love those hyper specific bits where it's like I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
But I'm loving hearing you talk about it. I feel like that's the I don't know if that's a common thing, but I feel like that's something I always give more. That's what I like to watch that happen. Even though it's like,
no, absolutely. I think I've said this in basically every one of these podcasts that we do, but one of my favorite things as like a comedy consumer or like actually going to watch, specifically live comedy, it's not quite the same watching it in any other format, but specifically going to watch live comedy and there's like a really alternative character act, or not even necessarily a character act, but someone just doing stuff that's just so weird and out there, and just being one of like the 5 people in the room that is absolutely in hysterics, whilst everyone else is just bemused. It's my favorite statement. It is better than any orgasm I've had. Just watching like I don't know if you've ever seen I don't know if Birthday Bread Man ever like made it down to London, but I'm not even going to try and explain the act because it is absolutely just bonkers. It wouldn't be funny, but it's just
there's some stuff where when it just hits you and you're not even present with everyone else. You're just like so locked into your own brain and what you find funny about it. And it's like I remember I saw Tim Heidecker recently at his show in Dalston, and there was like, I mean, the whole thing was hilarious, but like there was this one line that just made me like really, like my stomach was like hurting, and then afterwards I was like, I can't even remember the line he said, and I remembered it afterwards, but there was just a brief period where it's like I completely just like it's like a lot laughed my brain out of my head and just completely couldn't remember anything.
And even if you could remember it, if you tried to explain to someone else why it was so funny, they just look at you like you were deranged.
That one in particular, that's in this weird like bubble, this weird like irony bubble of just like everyone being in on the joke in such a strange way that I hadn't really experienced before, which was really great. Like I really liked it, but it was like just very, very silly and But bits are great.
Absolutely. So also, I was just seeing Andrew Taylor's put in the chat, I heard DB Cooper survived and started a well-known webcomic. Another reference which I don't get, but I'm sure is very funny to anyone who does.
He better, man. You know what? I don't want to be super cynical about DB Cooper and just be like, I feel like I want, like, you want it to be. I mean, they never found the body, so there's something in that, right? Yeah, so it's like a whole...
it is possible.
And
but anyway, putting DB Cooper to one side, so how did we get from the start of your comedy journey to is DB Cooper or Emilio Earhart funny? So what is your earliest memory of enjoying comedy as a viewer? Not necessarily as like this something I want to do.
I know exactly what it was, actually, or at least I was Mock the Week was always on TV, so I think probably it was something like Scenes We'd Like to See, just because it's so punchy and dynamic. I think for when you don't know what comedy is, it just kind of grabs you because you're just like, what is going on? And they have such funny voices, like, and I feel like they leverage the way the sort of comedy voice of it. And then I think the one and this is just so. The one that was like, I think, stuck with me at a young age, or hit me and I didn't really know what it was actually, it was Grandma's House, Simon Amstell's sitcom on TV, and I think it captured this. It was that, and then his stand-up of Do Nothing and Numb, which I was actually like, I think
I've seen whichever his first one is. I can't remember what it was called. I think it was Do Nothing.
It was Do Nothing. Yeah, it was his first one, and then Numb was the second, and then all the rest. Yeah, I don't have to list.
You've got Wikipedia. You can have a look.
But that was that quite nice thing of, you know, when you're an age where you don't really understand why something speaks to you, but you just want to see it. And I think it captured a lot of. I mean, I think that show is still underrated. I don't think. I mean, Simon Amstell's like obviously a legend in these streets.
Sure,
so like everyone is.
These are huge,
Like, well, he's like the platonic ideal of the confessional comedian, right? Like he's just.
I guess he is.
But at that time, like that was a really weird. It's a really weird show because he can't act, like, and that's like a big part of it. And he's with these, and it's also like the cast is amazing because you've got like so many. It's like the thick of it alumni of like what's her name? Oh, that's actually Rebecca Front. John Smith and who played there's a bunch of other people. There's a bunch of like just really funny people, and it's such a weird tone, and it like plays out as this. It basically like a depressing sitcom.
Yeah,
you've seen it, right? Sorry, I'm sorry.
No, I've actually not. Yeah, I've only seen my only Simon Amsterdam points of reference are his first stand-up special, which I don't remember much of apart from his bit about having two sinks, one that he uses to mostly cry. That that line lives rent free in my head. And I've obviously seen like when he was like the host of Buzzcocks for a little while.
Yes, yeah. Well, I think I knew Buzzcocks, but I didn't. There was a weird separation of like I think I'd seen it around and kind of didn't. Because then he had that, it was kind of a not an odd rebrand, but kind of left field rebrand.
Yeah,
so then,
sure.
So basically, Grandma's House is basically about him. He plays like himself, having left Buzzcocks and having to move back in with his mum.
Oh, okay.
It's basically about all their relationships and like him and his mum having these like odd conversations.
Sure.
And the rest of his family as well, and then just different, and then just kind of pretty classically sitcom stuff happens. They only got 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And it was like but it was just like there was something really something just really sad about it in this really funny way. Like it's kind of like a really good vehicle for him because like it's basically like a self-insert. I think there's bits where he's literally like repeating almost verbatim bits from his stand-up.
Right. Yeah.
Seinfeld way, but it's like about middle class ennui, I guess, and being unable to heal with your family. So I think
is it one of those kind of like fictionalized autobiography kind of like shows?
Kind of. I think it's pretty fictional, but the feeling is real or something.
Right.
Like that.
Yeah. Sure.
He doesn't. I think he like is playing a particularly neurotic version or like whatever.
Sure.
But it was just that one. Like it was sort of. I became in my head. I associated like that's like it's like when you find out when you first listen to like Talking Heads or Arcade Fire or something.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, this is music. Like this is the thing I'm really into. It was a bit like that, I think.
Yeah.
So that was my first memory of enjoying stuff. I mean, I think it was always on. There's that weird energy of comedians just as a kid, like in your life, kind of drifting, like you were like, oh, that's the telly man, and he's on telly.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm not sure. I'm not actually sure exactly how old you are. I assume we're like roughly the same age. Probably grew up around the same time because I definitely sort of as like in like my early teens. Certainly had watched a lot of Mock the Week when it was on and thought it was just like the absolute best thing ever. Like I'd seen a bit of comedy before that. I think the first thing I saw was I caught like half of an old Lee Evans show when it was being shown on Channel 4, which was just incredible. Like I don't particularly rate Lee Evans that highly these days. Well, no, I don't. I think Lee Evans is still like one of the best comedy performers of all time. I don't think his writing holds up to much scrutiny, but I think that's part of the charm because he sells fairly middle of the road concepts like in a way that like
I've never watched a special. I'm realizing I've never
definitely
watched
so like his like Arena trilogy, Wired and Wonderful, Big at the O2, and there's like another one. They're definitely worth watching at least once, I think, just to kind of get a view of how. This is I don't know if it's a backhanded compliment or a backhanded insult, but it's like how you can sell fairly mediocre writing because it is very middle of the road observational stuff, the same stuff that like Michael McIntyre would be doing a few years later.
Sure. I do like the idea of the backhanded insult where you just like really really let them know that it's like the way they said it was mean and it was a mean.
But there's a nice thing about it as well.
Yeah, I think there's a weird that was like the DVD comedian era, right? Of
that was wild. That's
very
just like
codified thing,
sure.
And it's kind of strange to watch them now because not even strange, but like they it was just I think just advertising wise and it being everywhere was a real sort of cognizant thing as a kid. Yeah. Even though you're not really sure what it is.
It was just like like as soon as anyone in your family knew you had an interest in stand up, it was just a guaranteed stocking filler every Christmas.
100%,
like because they would always time the releases to be like around that time as well.
Really?
Specifically, most of the time. And it's interesting. So I've still got like a load of my old stand-up DVDs, and it's interesting. And upsettingly, they're like all white men because they were mainly the comedians that had the access to like produce DVDs at that point in time. But it's interesting. Like it's interesting because a lot of them will now just be in a 50p bucket at any kind of CX or charity shop.
So it's they depreciate
So
faster than-
it's kind of
yeah,
interesting
they-
to see which ones have kind of been held up as timeless. Like I think the Bill Bailey ones hold up pretty well. Eddie Izzard's ones are interesting because they were from the VHS era and then got I don't know if they were remastered, but they got re-released on DVD, which is quite incredible because comedy I think ages very quickly. So I think like a lot of stuff from the VHS era wouldn't not in a kind of you wouldn't be able to get away with this today. Just that it's just this stuff isn't. Like it encapsulated the moment in time of how humor worked then that that has gone out of fashion. So it's interesting. Yeah,
even like just the way you receive content, I guess, like it was this prized thing is changed, so it can't. I don't think it can't relate to the same sensibilities. You mentioning Bill Bailey just reminded me of being. I was really into Tim Minchin when I was like 16, 17. And that was, but that was kind of, I don't really, I think I was like, hang on, how old was I? How old are you in like year 5? No, year 5, year 9, year 10?
Year 9, 10, you'd be like between 13 and 15, I think.
Yeah, I think it was when I just found out about atheism, and I thought it was like the
coolest thing
in the
God.
world.
Yeah,
and
no,
I was
feel
just
that.
like, whoa, there's no, because I was raised Catholic, but like. So yeah, as the old joke goes, so now I'm an atheist. But it was this very exciting. Oh my god, he's totally right. I hadn't even thought of that. And that kind of, it's not edge. I don't think it was edgy, but like, I mean, I think that brand of it, that sort of David Cross, Tim Minchin, Richard Dawkins whole thing is kind of edgy.
Yeah.
But I think there's this weird excitement, which is probably more representative of like being excited by like ideas
definitely
than anything else. But I remember that was, and then also because he plays piano and like it is cool, like seeing with his like with the hair and everything,
the rock hair,
like the song Dark Side, there's like that extended 14-minute version where he does this insane piano solo where he's just going nuts. I think there was a lot of stuff packaged in that. But so that was sorry. Just you mentioning musical comedy, maybe.
No. It's interesting. I think Tim Minchin's kind of an outlier because Tim Minchin, like the Tim Minchin shows that were released on DVD, feel more like live concerts than comedy specials. And obviously, like comedy specials are live concerts, but like it feels more like you're watching like.
It's like a cabaret.
Kind of cabaret. I was trying to think of like, I was trying to think of a cool band, and I nearly just said S Club. Like that.
S Club is a cool band. I don't know why anyone's telling you they're not. S Club, I can't. Rachel Stevens. I can't actually remember any songs at the moment, but
no, I can't either.
That's sad.
But I just forgot. I don't even particularly listen to a lot of S Club, but that was just the only band I could think of in that moment in time.
Just the club. The word club is like that's a group. But I think it was that because there's also his the orchestra one, and I'd never seen anything like that.
I was lucky enough to see that one live. Actually, that was phenomenal.
Oh, I'm so jealous. I'm such a sucker for stuff that's not orchestra music having orchestra music in it. And I mean the version of Not Perfect from that is beautiful.
I get
a bit eerie. And it's like I think it's been because I know it was like a surprise when he wrote Matilda and everything else, but I think it was proven he's
definitely
a good songwriter as well, like in that kind of a what's the word not Garfunkel and Oates who were
I think I know who you mean.
Not Peter Gabriel. Who was married to Carrie Fisher? I can't even get it.
Someone in the chat, Google who was married to Carrie Fisher.
Simon.
Paul Simon.
It's like that kind of Paul Simon structure, or like what my father-in-law was always like. That's how you write a song. Talk about like a Jimmy Buffett number or something. And like, it's very like it structures were well. It's really listenable and has like that kind of that musicality to it. I think. Anyway.
No,
as if you're gonna jump down like you guys don't anymore. It's like it's just musicality. It's just. Sorry, go on. I cut you off.
No, it's fine. I was gonna say like I feel like if you went to see Matilda the musical, you even if you didn't know who did the soundtrack, it's a very Tim Minchin soundtrack. Like the jokes in it are very much written in his voice. A lot of them, I think, particularly the opening number. Anyone who's not seen Matilda, the musical, this is going to mean nothing to. But I think, but it's got there's like that whole bit about like childbirth, kind of like both simultaneously being a miracle but also a certainty of life, and that whole kind of like philosophy of like on the one hand,
cynic,
on the one hand being really cynical, but also there's like a kind of earnestness to it, like it happens all the time, but the fact that it happens is still kind of amazing. It's a very
He had such a particular. That's what I said. But he had such a particular point of view, even just like philosophically speaking, which I think was like exciting because it's also silly and it's about like all those big dude topics of like sex and death and religion and all those big. And I think when you're 15, those are really exciting to see someone talk about.
And also he just kind of made him cool because I don't think any of and this isn't necessarily a criticism, but I don't think any of Tim Minchin's like takes on like science or philosophy or religion were particularly unique to him. Like people had done it before. Like a lot of his stuff is quite similar to what Dara Ó Briain was doing at the time. But there's a kind of coolness to Tim Minchin that other groups didn't really have. That I think we were probably the perfect age to be suckered into.
Totally.
I like Dara Ó Briain well enough, but I wouldn't have considered myself a fan at the time.
But he's not playing piano.
He's not playing piano. He hasn't got cool hair. He's not wearing criminal damage jeans with the skeleton handprints on the back, which I used to have those exact jeans for ages, and I saw that
really?
DVD.
Oh my god, yeah. I think you've also cut into the crucial factor of it, which is when skinny jeans were cool.
It was. And
they were so. I think people really don't understand because there's all these debates now you see about like millennial versus Gen Z on jeans or on TikTok or whatever. That doesn't matter. And it's. I really can't stress to the viewers or whatever or whoever's watching this, the hold that skinny jeans had. They were like the thing you had to have. I remember because that was when I first started wearing clothes that were like cool or like, cool. And I think it was this will date it.
That was when I first became cool.
Matt Smith was Doctor Who, and I remember trying to copy like everything he was wearing on the street.
That was a wild time.
That was peak like Alpha Beat and all those. That kind of very. I mean, they've got the half-life of a butterfly that era. Like it just had like there was no.
It was wild.
Dying on the vine as it was happening. It was like but so that was a crucial. Skinny jeans were a crucial part of all of this.
No, absolutely. And like the time I started wearing skinny jeans was about the time I started having an interest in actually doing stand-up comedy. So it is a crucial part of the story. But let's talk about that. So we talked about your kind of like earliest comedy memories. What were you? Was there like an immediate interest in like that's something I want to do myself, or did that come a bit later? When was like when did you make the conscious decision to start like pursuing?
It was a drama teacher told me to do it because there was a talent show.
Fair.
I was like 17, and she was like, I think you should do stand-up. I think you'd be good at it. And I had a sort of second wind of being into comedy of. I think John Mulaney, I just watched him do the Why I Don't Drink Anymore story, which I just thought it was amazing to hear someone thread the needle of a story and like have a whole thing. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. And I think it was like, I don't think anyone laughed. It was like 12 of my friends cheering every punchline. And that was enough for me to think, because I was sort of like, I think that was enough for me to think, oh, this is amazing. I've got to try this again. And then I started doing open mics and stuff, and then it just kept being fun, and I kept kept on with it. But it was her. She told me to do it. It was really like very I think it was. I can't remember what it was about. I think it was about my first kiss or something like that. And it was really, but it was very.
It's not a routine that you still do now, then.
I think it gets to a point where it's weird to as a grown up to talk about the first time you kiss someone.
I feel like it does, but I also know loads of comedians who would definitely still tell that story if it was them.
It's just like I gained nothing from it. Basically, because the story was because the first girl I kissed actually robbed me as well. So that was the thing.
Oh, okay, right.
But as in not like at gunpoint. Right? But she like. I
you just really like misread the signals. And we're like, all right, I guess I'll kiss you then. Like, no,
I think she
this is a mugging.
It was like she pickpocketed me mid-kiss, like in Charlie's Angels or something.
Oh, I see.
Charlie's Angels Full Throttle, whichever.
Back in with
trajectory.
the references.
Yeah, it was like it was very, but it was that weird thing of not knowing if she did or not. And I think I texted her. It was so embarrassing. I think I texted her the next day, being like, "Did you
pickpocket
rob
me?"
And then it was, and that was the bit. But I don't think it had any good lines in it. I think it was literally just like me trying to. I think I got a bit deer in the headlights about it because it was so. Because also, it's probably not the best venue because it's like. A talent show is already weird.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah, so it was.
I mean, it's everything that's kind of weird about doing a variety show, but also everyone in the variety show has like a fairly decent chance of being slightly terrible. So like, like everyone's kind of there out of politeness.
Yeah, no, I remember because it also happened in. So then there was a talent show, and then there was this charity night for my school, which was like they booked 3 comedians. To perform, and they thought it would be a good idea to show some of the student talent. So they had a kind of amateur portion, right? But
it's a nice idea, but
well, here's the thing, because they had the amateur portion after the first 3 acts had been on, and the last pro act had got a standing ovation.
Oh no.
And it was kind of classic. Like they were very like it was very classic bits they were doing. Like this one guy who was a one-liner comedian. There was the one guy who's the guy who was on Balls of Steel, who's now on like Talk TV or whatever.
Oh god, I can't remember.
Mark something. I can't remember his name. He was on it, which is really funny now.
Yeah.
And he was hosting, and then they had the 2 comedians on. And I think the comedian literally had I think he did the puppet thing. You know the thing with ventriloquists where they have the fake mouth.
Yeah.
Say the thing. So I think he did that, and then he got a standing ovation. And then, so imagine it. But then the host or like one of the staff comes and like, wait. Everyone's like wanting to leave. The show is clearly over.
Yeah. And now the students.
And it was like, and now we have 3 students. And one guy did like a bunch of ripped off Bo Burnham stuff.
Of course.
That I think only I knew. He would literally. I think he did like the all of that. And another guy just talked about. These are like 15, 16-year-olds, and I think he was talking about. Having sex and stuff, and then I walk out, I do my like weak bit, and it was like I think about 50 to 60 people in this like church hall with the stage, and just silence because they're just like,
no.
Why is this happening? And then I kind of stumble through, and then I get off, and I remember I was so affected. It was so embarrassing. It's so humiliating. And I think one of the comedians walked by. I was like, "Nice job," and kind of knocked me on the back.
Oh, bless him.
And then walked on. I was just like, "Oh no!" He might have said like, "How'd you feel?" or something like that. But it was just like,
how do you think that went?
It was so rough. Like it was so and just so ill-advised. Like even I don't think I would have even laughed if I was there. If I was like, you know, you've come for a charity dinner, you've been donating. And it's like,
I'd be like, I want my money back.
I don't want to watch the kids try and do some edgy club material or whatever. So it was just like dire, and I think I probably cried. I think it was a whole deal.
I was going to say, it's interesting that you had that as like your formative comedy experiences, but still carried on. Well,
I think then it was such a.
I suppose once you've had like rock bottom, it's kind of like, okay, it can only get better.
Oh, well, that wasn't rock bottom.
Oh, okay.
That was way later. Yeah. But it is strange, and it was strange just because I think it was such it was like one of those things where it's like, this is just an odd thing to be involved in. Like it just shouldn't have happened. That it was just poor. I know what, like, there's that weird, that justification. It was like, I know what went wrong. It was the timings of the thing.
Yeah.
But it was just so visceral. I remember just being so upset and so like mortified.
No, I can imagine. Yeah.
But then you go to a gig, like I think that then I did Comedy Virgins.
Kevin Deschamps.
And then that's like the anti that. That's like so supportive and
it's really supportive. It always shipped me up though, because I don't know if they still do the thing, but like where they don't have a running order, they just pull your names out of a hat. So like you've no idea you're going to be on until they start reading your name, and it's just. But my heart could not take that now. It was incredibly nerve-wracking at the time.
Yeah. I gotta know. Yeah,
I get why they do it, but yeah, absolutely, just.
But yeah, so that was when I started doing it, and then just kept doing it, and it kind of kept just being fun and got better. It's a nice thing in that you notice you even if it's slight improvements, it's nice that you notice those.
It is.
Or that, like, if you look back on old sets or whatever, it's cool that you are always
definitely
evolving, if not improving.
Definitely, and I think because people always say that, like, probably stand-up comedy is like really brave and like, oh, I wouldn't be able to do that. But I think if you can get past your first step, then you can kind of deal with any of it. I think once you've I mean, I can't imagine having your first gig as like part of a school talent show, because like at least if you do like an open mic in the middle of nowhere, if you die, you'll probably never see these people again, and if you do, they probably won't remember you unless you were particularly like offensively bad. But in a school talent show, when you're like, I've got to see all these people tomorrow,
It is an interesting question of like, what would someone have to do that would be so dreadful you'd remember it? Like, because I couldn't, even the worst shows I remember watching, or not even worst shows, but just watching someone kind of die.
Yeah.
For a while. The worst ones of that, like, I don't really remember what happened unless something.
Unless they like just like Nazi salute and walk off, which I've heard stories of acts doing before. I've never seen it myself.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Yeah. But yeah, so that's a nice comforter to be like, they'll forget this. You might not, but they will.
Oh, well, I'll tell you one thing I did see actually was someone who was just doing like Chris Rock jokes, and then like someone in the audience someone in the audience heckled the punchline of the joke back to him before he said it, and then just said Chris Rock name of the special, and then and then it was just like it was really like it was an open mic, like one of those open mic nights where it's only comedians in the audience kind of thing, but it was just like, wow, that was
what a weird time to do stolen material.
yeah, no, it's wild.
Anyway, yeah, no, it was that's probably the harder thing to walk off is if you steal a joke. I think, at least with other comedians, like they'll people know.
This is it. Like once you've been like caught stealing a joke, or even if you didn't steal it but caught doing a joke that is like fairly notably someone else's, even if it was just like a kind of parallel thinking situation, that puts into question everything else that you've ever written and say. Because I've definitely had jokes I've done and then after the fact have seen either like older specials that I just hadn't seen, or like newer specials from more famous acts and me do jokes that maybe weren't word for word the same, but like enough of a similar concept that I'm like, right, I can't do that anymore.
I think I've noticed. I think sometimes I'll hear it back and I'll be like, oh, you said that's like an aside from something, like I think that you notice, but they're always slightly. I don't know if I'm just being overly cautious. And there's I don't know if you have this. There's certain bits which aren't like stolen, but are in someone else's voice or style. Like there's bits I've written down where it's like, oh, that's like a Joe Lycett-esque bit. You shouldn't do that. Or like rewrite that so it sounds more. Sounds more.
Sure.
You. That's
okay.
Right.
Yeah. That's
so like just like I noticed that's. Your intonation is the setup is similar, even if it's just. I think it was literally about like Spotify's lyrics genius thing.
Yeah,
and it just felt very like I think just saying there's this online thing and going through it was like kind of felt like
just didn't feel like you.
But not even that it didn't feel like me. Just that it's like, oh, that sounds like you're sort of embellishing something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. I had like a bunch of questions I wanted to ask off the back of that, and I've forgotten most of them. I will hopefully remember some in a little bit. But I think this one's quite close to what we're talking about. So, because you were talking about kind of like writing something that is in someone else's voice. Do you think that you've found your voice in stand-up comedy? And if so, when did you know that you'd found it?
That's a very good question. I think it's getting closer to it. I think there's bits I've written where it's like I really enjoy talking about this thing and the energy I have while talking about it. But I feel like it's an ongoing thing, right? Like I try not to think too much about it because I feel like you should just focus on what's funny. And then, 'cause even if you don't feel like you have a voice, people give you like people say like, oh yeah, you have a very you know people will tell you what your voice is.
Yeah.
And
it's how people understand things. They'll try and relate it to experiences they've already had. So, like, inevitably, they'll be like, they'll like find the nearest big name comedian that kind of fits your style, and be like, oh, that's who you remind me of, even if you're not that similar to him.
Oh yeah, completely. I think it's like It's definitely a thing, and not that you should listen to people and give you their voice or whatever, but like it was just a thing of noticing. I just always wanted. I just felt like the focus was on the punchline or on like what's funny, and then and then there's stuff you want to talk about or like put into a guise of something that feels important to you.
Sure.
But I don't think I'm that good at balancing the two in a super interesting way. So like I figured, if I could just figure out being funny, and then in the sort of factory of content, it'll be like it'll just come good, and you'll gravitate towards talking about stuff or have little jokes that show how you really feel. Yeah, I feel like you should always try and talk about something you care about.
Yeah.
Or like,
oh, for sure. Yeah.
It's real, but like, yeah. So.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. And yeah, because
you found your voice.
I think so, yeah. If I had to put a date on it, I'd probably say like around, just before lockdown, really, around the time I started Blizzard. But I'd say that's the point where I like found a kind of foundation of my voice. I don't think we ever stopped really developing it, because like we always, I mean, as people, we always keep changing in life. We keep like our values may shift. We may have like our outlooks will change on things. Like I certainly have very different opinions to when I started stand up. Very different tastes on things that I found funny. I don't think that ever stops changing, but I definitely got to a point where like if I look at anything I did kind of pre 2018, I'm like, even if some of the individual bits were like, okay, that's pretty good, I could still work with that. I feel like I'm looking at a different comedian that we don't really have a need for anymore. Whereas like now, oh, go on.
No, it's, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's all right.
Wondering, do you I feel like just with hosting, I feel like that does bring out like what feels like a more natural voice, because it's much more improvisational, and sort of trying to react to stuff, and I feel like that feels much more voice-like.
Yeah, do you know what? It does for sure, but I think also lockdown helped quite a bit with that, because doing stuff more virtual and so I don't know if you've noticed, because we've not actually booked you for it before, but over lockdown we started doing a panel show kind of in the vein of Mock the Week, but I'd say more similar to the Australian version, Good News Week, and it's kind of like a lot more of a spectacle. It's a lot more game focused. It's not that it's not snappy, but it's like it's kind of longer form. And like that became well, first it was like a challenge of writing topically every month, which was really good for me to get a bunch of writing done that I by definition can't really reuse. Maybe some of like the joke structures I can work in a different way, but generally it's like, okay, I've done that, it worked as well as it did, now I've got to move on to the next month. But also because it was kind of pseudo improvisational, it made me focus on I guess I don't want to say comedy persona, because it's not like it's not me, but like the kind of it made me be a lot more relaxed, kind of ad-libbing, and just like confident that like in my personality in this context will be funny without necessarily thinking of specific jokes. Like I will be able to say something witty, and I think when you get to that point, for me, I think I felt that I was just like that to me was the mark of like a strong foundation as a voice in comedy, when like you don't need to just be reading off of a script or memorizing lines
exactly.
to be funny.
I think that for sure,
and that'd be different, because some people like never really read from scripts. Some people have always been kind of off the cuff and still change, and some people still are very rigidly tied to scripts, but I still would say they had their voice. But I think for me personally, that was like the first like a real strong sign. They're like, oh yeah, I kind of know what I'm doing now. Because in the early days, I was definitely trying to emulate Eddie Izzard, and then in like when I'd been going for like a year and a half, someone said, "Oh, you remind me of Andrew O'Neill," who I'd never heard of at the time, and then I made the mistake of getting really into Andrew O'Neill, and given that I already kind of have the same aesthetic and sense of humour, I then spent the next few years getting kind of, I guess, kind of like shoeboxing myself into that, writing a lot more like that, and then getting a lot of comparisons. The material was all original. I never stole any material, but I think it was like you say, when you write something, you're like, the X comedian could do this, and it would.
Yeah, totally. It kind of and there's a certain structure to that where it's like, oh, I just know it's not that verbatim, but it is something You can hear how you've got a crib sheet there. I
Yeah.
should say, hang on, this is so annoying to us. How long do we have? Because I've just got a notification that I need to get my charger.
That's all right.
Might die, so I don't want it to die midstream. And you just wonder like what happened.
No, that's all right. I mean, we've been going for like nearly an hour already. I've still got a few questions left, so if you want to grab your charger, and we'll just kind of do a quick fire round. And if anyone in the chat has any questions they want to ask as well, do put them in.
I'm okay to run off.
Yeah. You go grab your charger.
I'll be super quick.
That's okay. Self-effacing only just redeemed hydrate, so I'll do that with my lilt because I don't have any water with me. Sorry. I forgot to do this at the beginning as well, but if you want to go follow Daniel on socials, TikTok and Instagram, links are in the chat. You should go and do that. And probably good a time as any to remind you our next live show is at the Castle Hotel, not Gullivers, although it is across the road, so if you go to Gullivers, you're not going to be far off. On April the 10th, tickets are still available. You can book them, but we find that they tend to sell out quite quickly in the last week before the show. So do book yours now if you haven't done already. That's all right.
All right, I'm back in.
You're back in
the Matrix.
Fab.
I got it.
Cool. Yeah, we ended up rambling for quite a lot longer than I anticipated there. So yeah, I'm gonna do a few quick fire kind of questions.
Yeah, sure, hit me.
Quick fire in the broadest sense of the word. We kind of touched on lockdown just then. So first of all, when did you actually start performing stand-up comedy? I don't think I actually.
2018.
Cool. So you've been going for a couple of years before.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So how did you find that lockdown impacted your approach to kind of writing and performing comedy at all? Did you just kind of fuck it off entirely for the time? Did you try and adapt into different forms, or?
I think I tried to do Zoom gigs and I just hated them because I was dying. I was just in my room and I didn't do a great job. And also like I wasn't
sure.
I think I put the energy into doing TikTok sketches, which was
yeah.
So I was still making stuff. So I guess it was good to like have that, where it's like you should just be trying to do stuff all the time on different mediums. But I don't think it didn't. And then when I came back to it, it's like it just made sense. And then I slightly prioritized that because I prefer to do stand up to TikTok. But like,
sure.
So that was so it was pretty classic. Yeah, pretty classic. Reallocation.
I think that's interesting because there were so many different kind of. I mean, I think like the first few months of lockdown, it was very awkward. People were just kind of trying to replicate live stand-up in a Zoom setting, which I don't think necessarily works. I wouldn't go to a Zoom. I wouldn't go to a Zoom gig when I was in it. I would rather watch stuff on other stuff. So I was like, just do that instead. And I had a podcast at the time, so then that So there was like a calendar to it at the very least. Like, there was a daily thing to do. There was writing. You had some projects, for sure.
Especially like research projects, which can be so fun. If you,
definitely, I would absolutely love to be the kind of person who could do research projects. But and I did think of starting like a political vlog over lockdown, but then realized I have enough of an understanding that I can watch people who know what they're talking about and understand what they're talking about, but not enough that I can make those arguments myself.
Totally, I get that.
And I guess that kind of moved into the panel show where it's like, okay, it is based around the news and politics, and to a lesser extent, kind of pop culture and all that stuff is going on. But ultimately, it is a silly like comedy game show, so it's not as people aren't going to be, or I hope people aren't going to be coming to us for like genuine political analysis, because there are much better people who can provide that.
That's the thing, where you're like, someone else can say this better and funnier, so I don't feel obliged to. It's a weird kind of thing with political comedy that way.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have time, so I'm slightly cutting myself off. Next question.
I think I had another question off the back of that, but I've forgotten it, so I'll come back to that if I remember it, but if not, cool. It's fine. Do you find... Oh, actually, yeah, that was it. It's not even a question. I just wanted to say I did actually have a look at your TikTok before going live, because I've put that in the chat as well if anyone wants to go check it out. I watched that one, I don't know how long since you updated it, but it was like 2 TikToks ago when you were just responding to that. Oh, if you look closely, you can see all these stand-up specials. They have bottles of water in the back. And I had that on loop for a bit.
Original video. That video was insane.
I didn't realize. I've never seen the original video before, and then
It was literally like the New York Times or New Yorker or something posting this thing of just like over analyzing. So it's basically about water and stand-up specials, but they're saying literally nothing. They're going like, they use it as a tool for hydration and for pausing, and it can be an injury. It's just like, it's just water, man. It's just like, it's what we're all 70% of. Like,
I know, and if you're doing like a 1 to 2 hour stand-up show,
he's talking for an hour.
Yeah, usually under like quite warm stage lights. Like you need to hydrate.
We're over realizing. There's so much. It's just like, it was so ludicrous. Yeah, that was fun. I've slightly taken the foot off the pedal with that because it just was. It was a weird thing of, but I want to get back to it at some point. Yeah, but it was a weird thing of joke structure that you get into with that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think I won't labour this point too much, but I think one of the things that I think once we kind of got further into lockdown is we realised that there are loads of different formats and things that can work online, and
totally, yeah.
I think a lot of people felt pressure to kind of do all of them and still kind of get that. Like I definitely could not do TikTok. That's not something I think would translate very well for me. But like I know I'm okay doing like streams on Twitch or YouTube, which other people couldn't necessarily do. So I think we've got to a point where like actually there's so many tools which I think were probably underutilized before lockdown as well. So I'm glad that some of that has stuck around to a greater or lesser degree.
Definitely. I think I saw a point that was made that was like, you should have been doing that anyway. Like I think I can't remember who said it, but it was just like, there's no reason for you not to do that if you want to be a comedian. Like if you like making it, and it's, just do it. Like it's
for sure, yeah. I mean, even just try it. You might not stick with it, but it'll give you another challenge. It'll help you kind of define. And it will just be fun. Right. Do you find you have to ever adjust your performance style based on the room you're performing in?
Like kind of the niche thing we were talking about before. Like if there's just stuff, it's like I just know you won't know what that is, so I'm just gonna kind of keep it a bit broader. I always slightly struggle with that just because it's like I think just because of my writing style, but like I don't know if it's super conscious, but you kind of it just comes out naturally as well. Like sometimes there's something in the room that's more there's something interesting going on. So
for sure, Have you ever what's like the gig that you've done? I mean, like you don't need to name the specific gig, but what has kind of like been your worst reception as the comedian that you are?
Like worst gig? Or...
Yeah, I guess so. Or just like the room you felt responded to you the worst.
There's been a couple.
Yeah.
There was one. There's a couple that spring to mind. There was one where like they didn't like me and they weren't into what I was doing or like but there was a guy who was like a DJ and on good jokes he would do like sound effects and on bad ones
that sounds horrible. I'd hate that.
And I think at the near the end when I was just kind of dying, I was like kind of just talking to them because it was like wasn't going anywhere. And I just sort of said, I turned to him, I was like, can you just give me one of those as a just for me? And then he kind of just did it, and it was like the saddest, like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Oh, bless.
But there was somewhere, the worst ones are probably the ones where like you feel out of your own body. And like, I remember I was doing a set, and it was like a trial. It was like a trial spot for a club. And it was going so bad, like they hadn't laughed in like 5 minutes of a 10-minute set. And I could feel myself floating out of my body and sort of thinking like, you're not going to like this joke either. If you didn't like that, you're not going to, the rest of it's basically the same. And like, it was such a strange, and it was, and then I think the other people there who I came up with they did really well.
Right.
Or, like, they suddenly, he walked on and then he did amazing and got like the exact kind of reaction that you want to have at a trial spot. And it was just that thing of just like, oh no. But that was the one that I, slightly stuck with me because I remember the feeling of being on
awful,
stage panic, and not even panicking, but just like feeling disassociative almost.
It's just, so in that situation, if you like start doing like if you're booked to do 10 minutes say and like 5 minutes through set, you know that they're not enjoying it and they're not going to enjoy the rest. Do you have anything to like fall back on, like how comfortable are you like adjusting your set on the fly for the room, or is that something that you
there's
just...
always the
yeah.
classic just saying that they hate it.
Yeah.
Sort of, I probably would try and go to a bankable bit, or
Yeah.
like I'd like to think I've got enough crowd work that I could kind of
That
play
you could
around
just,
with that.
yeah,
And that's the funniest
just
thing.
make
Have
it
you ever
through
had
the
that
rest of
when-
the set, yeah.
Yeah, have you ever had that thing where you're dying and then you go back to crowd work because you're like, okay, you don't like material, so I'll just talk to you, and then they don't like the crowd work either.
Yeah.
It's just like you just feel completely insane. You're like,
I mean,
running out of
I
stuff here.
basically never do crowd work, so...
Okay. But there's stuff like if I can feel it going bad, I'll like drop back to a bit that's sort of the the bankable, the thing that you think is like, okay, that's the one, that's my go-to bit where like I make people, that's the one people laugh at the most. But like
Sure.
yeah, I would never call it. I would try not to call it early or anything like that though, because I just feel like it's like I'm gonna
Yeah.
get my fill, even if it's bad. Like it's still my time. So like
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's definitely different when you're doing a gig where it's just not where like everyone on the lineup is doing badly, because then you kind of get like fun solidarity out of it. You're like, right, we're here, might as well just have fun with it. But I think when
Well, you also have that weird. Do you ever have that weird arrogance of like,
I'll
I'm
be the
gonna
one.
turn this around. I'll
Yeah.
be the one. Yeah. They'll love
I
this.
don't think I've ever had that yet. I've definitely had mainly at like gong shows. I've definitely had a point where like the first like 20 people or whatever have just done awfully, and I've just been like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna last long. I'm just gonna have real fun and just kind of real double down on the aggressive weirdness. Just see how much
Yeah,
like weird
totally,
shit
yeah,
I can
yeah.
do before before they throw me off. And occasionally it has worked. Usually it doesn't.
Yeah.
But at that point I'm just like I'd already written it off in my mind, so I was just like, I'm just gonna get through
Yeah,
this.
I think that's
We'll-
probably worth.
We're all gonna get pissed afterwards and cry. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's probably worth rejecting gong shows before they reject you as well. Like having that sort of fatalist mentality is probably better
Yeah.
than anything else.
Yeah, and it depends which ones as well. Like I find King Gong in Manchester. I don't know what the London one's like. I assume it's similar.
Yeah.
I find that one is always particularly aggressive. Like they kind of try and encourage the audience to not enjoy it.
Yeah.
They want as few people to get through as possible. Whereas like Beat the Frog and Frog and Bucket, I feel like they at least give you a fair shot. Like it's made clear that like if you're not enjoying this, you can just kick them off.
There's
But,
a sliding scale.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, fab. So I remembered one of the questions I was going to ask you earlier because we were talking about
hit me.
we were talking about so your first set when you were like telling an anecdote of like this thing that happened to you but hadn't really kind of written it, hadn't kind of written any jokes into it, because that's one of the things I think is strong about your set. You're really good at kind of telling these. I don't even know if stories is the word, but like you kind of talking about real things that happen to you, but they're also like really tightly written routines. So is that something you had to like consciously learn how to do and work on, or does that come fairly naturally to you?
Kind of, yeah. I think I started out, and you just want to say the funniest thing as soon as possible, and then jump to the next topic. And then I think it was feedback at a competition where a guy was like, "You need to." The guy who was running it was like, "You need to just focus on one thing for a while. Stay writing on that. Don't jump around." And then that kind of stayed with me. And I just like storytelling as well.
Yeah.
I just think it's a really fun aspect of comedy. So I just wanted to do something like that, kind of a bit more. A bigger story, and also again, I guess the sort of fear of joke thievery. No one can steal your story if it happens to you.
That is true. It's a real personal one. Yeah,
or no one can accuse you of that. So it was like, so probably just a mix of wanting to say, but also I really like bits and I like having asides and I like sort of going off on a tangent and coming back. So I think that side of it was that probably how it all amalgamates together. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. So I don't think I'm much of an anecdotal comedian, but I definitely agree. Like I like the longer bits, which for me tend to be more, I guess, philosophical. But that makes it sound wankier than it is. But more just like more just like talking about ideas, talking about like kind of society, politics. But that kind of thing. I like having like topics and bits that I can talk about. And what I like about them is that I can have the same core idea for years, but then that will just get so many asides, so many bits breaking it up. Some bits I'll take off, and some bits I'll kind of like shuffle around, and I feel like it has quite a lot of longevity that way. And it's never like a perfected bit, and I feel like I don't know why I struggle with anecdotes specifically because I think it's the same. I think it is the same skill, but I think I second guess myself too much about like, well, I can't. I don't want to deviate from the strict truth too much because they'll know. Which even if they do, they generally won't care. But then I'm like, if I try and make this story funnier than it actually is, they're gonna know. They're gonna know that I've embellished this to a ridiculous degree. How do I keep it kind of grounded and realistic?
Yeah, totally. I have a similar instinct to try and be as honest as possible, but I am starting to deviate just because I'm like, I don't know. I just want to make it's just funnier because
literally, nobody cares about whether it's like you're not under oath. It's fine. You can
and like how it felt is really what you're trying to talk about.
Yeah,
or like the heart of it, what it means, man. What it means.
Yeah.
So that's always like the factor of that. I reckon anyway. Yeah.
I think so. I've heard people say as well, like you always got to like not be afraid of making yourself look like the loser in a story. So like if you're telling an anecdote that involves someone saying a really witty remark, it's fine to give that to someone else in the story. That's not like shortchanging yourself, but it kind of makes you feel a little bit more human.
I also have the thing that sometimes people will pull me up and like, oh, that's a great line, but in my head I'm like, that just makes me sound like such a freak. I need to give that to somebody else and react to it. It's like, can you believe this?
For sure,
I'm the one that thought that.
Fab. Okay, a couple more. This is kind of more of a job interview question. What's
my strengths and weaknesses?
What one milestone are you next looking for in comedy, if any? It's perfectly valid to say you're just kind of going to see what happens, but.
Well, I always consider myself a team player. And I always want to be the better team player. Milestone in comedy, I guess it probably would be doing Edinburgh, just because a lot of the people I know are doing Edinburgh now, and but not this year. I don't have. I missed the boat on it this year. And also like I had so I was away in America and then Argentina for like 5 months.
Okay.
And I didn't gig that much while I was out there. Because basically, I also got married since I last saw you.
Oh, amazing!
Congratulations!
Yeah,
thank you. But like my wife's American, and we're trying to figure out visa stuff. So I was out there for a chunk of time,
right? Okay.
And I wasn't gigging that much. So now I've come back to it, and now I have that thing of it. I just really hate all my old material and want to start from scratch. So like I think, or at least want to like repurpose old material properly. So I think it would take probably a year to do that, or to hone an actual hour that I want to do.
That's it. Yeah, so, I feel that.
So that's the so next year hopefully. But also, I actually don't know if I'll be in the country next year, so it's
just have to
a lot of my life super febrile right now.
Yeah, I think the way I'm seeing it is because I always wanted to do Edinburgh like within 10 years of starting stand-up comedy, which was last year, so I didn't do that. But now I'm just kind of like, do I really want to do Edinburgh, or do I just want to have an hour show? And I realized I just want to have an hour show, so I'm going to work on that, and I'm not going to worry about taking it.
Would it work as a catalyst for that? I mean, it's the best.
Maybe but I think so I think I'm gonna try and get something over the next. We'll try and at least get like a kind of structure together in the next few months, because I've definitely got an hour's worth of material. But is that a show? A lot of it, I don't think so.
Yeah, totally. I know what you mean. I had the same thing, just writing a lot and then not being able to test any of it. So you're just like, is that anything?
So
I really don't think
So my plan is just kind of hone that in my own time. Maybe like the odd preview spot if they'll let me do it, despite not going to Edinburgh, which most people do. And then there's obviously other smaller festivals around, and I've got Blizzard I can do it at as well. So and then like if that ends up, and then like I feel like if I want to do Edinburgh, like okay, I've got a show that you can obviously still be developed, but is really do I can focus on working out accommodation and finances, and because I just know I wouldn't be juggling all of them, I just wouldn't be able to manage it.
There's like as well, like I know tons of people that have done like are considering Edinburgh as like a work in progress like thing, so I feel like there's this total wiggle room. But it was just like I've done Brighton Fringe, and I'd done
nice one.
Camden Fringe. Those were like split shows. And so I wanted to then just keep pushing that, I guess. and get onto that.
Awesome. Well, I'll be excited to see that. And if you get an hour show and you
Me too.
want somewhere to preview it, do hit us up. I'll be happy to put you
Oh
on.
yeah, absolutely. I think I might take you up on that.
100%. Yeah. Message me afterwards. We've all of them are fill up for this. All of them are full up for this year. But if you're not doing it until next year anyway.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, cool,
yet.
great. Yeah. And I've got that on stream. So that's
you have. Yeah, you've got commitment to
I've
it.
got your word. I can just I actually have it right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fab. Okay, and final question. Unless anyone's got
Yes.
anything they want to ask in the chat, last chance if you do. What advice would today Dan give to past Dan about getting into comedy?
Oh man.
Kind of
I
sprung
guess
that
do
on you there.
scarier stuff. Do scarier stuff quicker.
Okay.
Like I think most of the growth I've had is done where I had the thought of I want to get better at that. So I wanted to in the last year or so. When we came back from COVID, I wanted to, or came back from lockdown. Sorry, I wanted to get better. I wanted to get hosting, and I wanted to just be on stage loads. And then hosting was this whole other really fun, kind of this creative thing to do.
Oh, awesome.
And then similarly with running my own night and doing concepts. So it'd just be I guess it's always just do it. There's that whole thing of I think I read a thing of someone's. It's one of those really wanky, routines things. But someone was talking about the. I say someone. I'm not even going to bury the lead. I'm going to show you exactly how. It was Zane Lowe of Apple Music. He was talking about his routine, but he was saying the difference between a good idea and between in his words, I don't like Zane Lowe, so so much ring around. He was talking about the difference between artists and people who just have ideas is execution. So I guess what I tell my past myself, just do everything, just do it all, because it's not.
Yeah.
It's really there's no consequences if you fail. Nothing changes.
No,
so
definitely.
just do, and the doing is always better than the not doing.
Yeah, and then you've got that experience. Even if you never do that particular thing again, you've got that experience that might translate into something, or it might even just be a case of, okay, I hate that, never doing it again. But that's still now you know.
Yeah, exactly. Because
really cool.
there's a thing of so that's probably what I would say. Yeah.
Awesome, fab. Well, thanks so much for coming on the stream. We've overrun quite a bit, so apologies if you had any.
No, it's
plans.
okay. Yeah.
Do you have any shows or anything coming up that you want to plug? We do have a few people in the chat, some of whom are based in London as well, so don't feel it has to be Manchester-centric.
For sure. The only thing I have is on the 15th of April at 2 North Down. I'm doing my show Cupidity Comedy. It's like a.
I saw the poster for that. That looks really fun.
Yeah, it's like a dating show where there's 4 comedians and 1 bachelorette chosen from the audience who has to pick who they're going to fall in love with at the end. It's super fun, super interactive. It's a one-off special. We've got some really great comedians. We've got Freya Mallards. We've got Jack Shepherd and Lily Webb and Emily Bampton and a couple extra people I think are going to get invited. So really, really fun. I'm really looking forward to it, but there's still available tickets and I really want to push those. Otherwise, follow me on TikTok. And Instagram is both Daniel_McKeon, spelled McKeon.
Yeah.
But those, I'm falling really into plugging mode because I was at a show recently where we had the opportunity to plug, and I did such a bad job of it because I was just really not feeling anything I was doing.
No, I understand. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the main show coming up. The tickets are available on Ticketext. If you go on my Instagram, there's a link in the bio. It's $450 for the show because we just wanted to make it as cheap as possible.
That's amazing.
That they would let us do. So yeah, come on down. It's going to be really, really fun.
Fab.
Hopefully that.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. If I was in London, I would definitely be going to that, and I'll bug everyone I know in London to go to that.
Please do.
So thank you all so much for watching.
Friends over it. I hope so.
Break all ties. Thanks so much for watching. Yeah, if you enjoy Daniel McKeon's work, you can follow him on TikTok and Instagram at Daniel_McKeon. And if you don't enjoy Daniel McKeon's work, you can block him on TikTok and Instagram at Daniel McKeon. We're back here live. We're back here live on Twitch on Monday, the 17th of April, with a catch-up version of our next live show, which I'll put the tickets in the chat now, which is on the 10th of April. So if you can't make it to Manchester, you'll be able to watch the majority of that on film right here on Twitch.
It's a really lovely gig. You should go. I had a really great time there, and it's a really nice positive.
Thank you very much. So yeah, we've got Randolph Tempest headlining, Leslie Ewing Burgess, Ava Liversidge, and Eddie French, and I think that's everyone. Oh, and I'm there. That's on the 10th of April. There are some tickets available for that, but as I say, they do tend to go fairly quickly the week before the show. So if you've not already reserved it, they are free to book. Make sure you do that. Otherwise, we might not be able to fit you in. And yeah, if you want to see more of what we do, you can follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, most places on the internet. We have at least some presence, but many of them we don't post on very often. But I'll put the link tree in the chat so you can find all of them if you're not already following us. And if you'd like early access to show tickets as well as discounted merchandise and occasional gifts, you can join our Patreon for as little as £2 a month. And this money helps us pay our acts a reasonable fee for their work, as well as run the day-to-day admin of the shows, which unfortunately means giving a few big corporations lots of money for very basic services that really shouldn't need paying for. But here we are. But yeah, thanks very much for coming on the show, Daniel.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's been
no
really
problem.
Fun.
I'm just going to quickly see if there's anyone online to raid. Both Suze Kempner and Robertron are on. Queer Buccaneers on, and they only have 3 viewers currently, and they're wonderful. So let's give them a raid. For anyone who's not Twitch savvy, that just means I'm going to move all the audience over to this particular channel. So we're going to go say hi to them. That's Eden MW. They've done our show a couple of times as well. Very, very lovely person. Right, the raid's been created. Yep, thanks everyone. So enjoy that show, and we'll see you back here on Twitch in 2 weeks' time, and we'll see some of you in person next week. Okay, bye everyone.
Bye.
Cool, I think we're done. There we are.